Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. You can call me Ollie. So first things first, I want to say that I'm recovering from a cold, so if I sound a little stuffy, that's why. And second thing is that I'm recording this at my honors college. There's a study room in the honors college here on my campus, my undergrad. So all I'm saying is that if you hear some noise in the background, sometimes people like to run around and all of that because people live on this building. So yeah. With that said, I can actually go into the actual video. Um, and basically, 3 weeks ago, I shared my cycle recap where I told you guys where I applied, what were the decisions, and ultimately where I'm committed. If you haven't seen that video yet, I definitely recommend you checking that out first. But long story short, I applied to several schools and I ultimately decided to attend Yale Law School. So that's where I'll be heading in the fall. Um, and in the video, I've gotten a few comments asking me, more about my application, like what do I think was, selling points, what did I think I did well, if I could just share my thoughts and whatnot. So this is me doing this. Now, I kind of realized that if I were to do a video about my entire application, it would be a really long video that A would probably be kind of boring to watch. B would take a long time to film, and finals week is like in 2 weeks, so I don't have time to do all at once. So I decided to instead divide this into multiple sections of my application, and I guess this is part one. I'll be talking about my activities, so things that I've done, or I guess I'm doing, depending on certain things during my undergrad that I put on my application and that I feel as though had an impact on my law school. Actually, scratch that last part. There are some things here that I don't think made an impact, but were on my activity supplement. And yeah, so I'll be sharing just things that I've done and I'm doing in college that, were in my law school application. So they were part of the decision. And just one final thing before I actually go into the actual content part is that this is not necessarily a resume review because I've seen a few resume review videos where people actually pulled out their resume and they were going like category by category. I am not actually using my resume as a guideline. Instead, what I'm using is my activity supplement that I had to turn in for Yale Law School. So, for those of you who haven't applied to Yale, who are not familiar with the Yale application, on top of your resume, you also do a 1 or 2 page activity supplement where you go into details, the things that you've done while in college. And the reason why I'm using this instead of my resume is that one, because I'm a KJD, I feel like that was the most important things, like what I'm doing in college. And two, because I just liked it better. It had room for me to give a little bit more detail, and it gave me room to talk about things that my resume did not necessarily fit. And third and final reason why I'm using this as opposed to my resume is that even though this is just for YLS, it can very easily, I'm telling you the things that I've done. So it can very easily translate into a resume, whereas I feel like taking a resume would not necessarily easily translate into one of those. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but yeah. So just have that in mind. I'm not sharing my resume because I'm doing my activity supplement instead. But the content is pretty much very similar. It's just what I did and what I'm doing in college. So with that said, let's get started. The first part, because the document is divided into 3 parts, is activities while taking undergraduate class. So those are things that I done in the fall and the spring or that I am doing. And I put them out into chronological order. There are many ways you can do your activity supplement. I've done mine by doing a table. So, I had, a column with, just the number of the activity, another with the title and location, another with the description, and then a fourth column saying, the hours, the pay, if it was paid or not, and the dates. But yeah, now I'm just rambling, so let's get started. One activity, the first one that I have listed, was being a student volunteer for my residence hall in my freshman year. I was a volunteer in my residence hall from fall freshman year to spring freshman year, so from September to May. And basically, all that I did was, represented the residents on my hall at the Residence Hall Council. And this is different than being an RA because obviously you cannot be an RA your freshman year, but you get to work one-on-one with your RAs, and more importantly, you represent your floor. So it was a way that I found to become, a student leader without having a lot of college experience under my belt just yet. And that was, just 3 hours per week, unpaid, very easily. The second activity that I have listed is being a student member and president for the student Latino student organization here on campus. I actually listed two different times. I listed 2 to 3 times a week for when I was a member, and then 3 to 5 for when I was the president. Both of them were unpaid. I started that my freshman year, and I became president in the fall of my sophomore year, and I was president too actually this semester when I had to, I was term limited, but that gives you time of what I was doing. So some of the things that I have listed, I actually can just read the description instead. Organized events to celebrate Latin American heritage on campus, led discussions to raise awareness to issues pertaining to Latina students on campus, and I coordinated philanthropy events, including but not limited to, a canned food drive to support Puerto Rico after it was hit with Hurricane Fiona, and a warm clothes drive for Latinos in PA. I also listed this is my third activity, my campus job. And the reason why I felt like I could list it is because it was a campus job. I don't think I would have listed if I had, a job outside of school during that time. I feel like that would be the kind of thing that I would put on my resume because YLS asks for both a resume and that activity supplement. So, I wouldn't. But my third activity actually happened to be my job because it was a campus job. I was a staff writer and I am the lead culture writer, which is in other places is basically called assistant editor, which is a step down from being an editor, but a step up from being the writer. But I was the staff writer, and I am the lead culture writer for the campus newspaper here at the Penn, and that's pretty much what I wrote. Lead writer, assistant to the culture editor at a collegiate newspaper, and I was the author of a permanent column covering political news, in especially U.S. Congress. And again, timing, I put how many hours I work in a week, which is a very weird range depending on the stories, but I gave them a range, and I made sure to point out that I was paid. And I also started that in the fall of my freshman year, and I still am involved in that. So 4 years of dedication to the organization. And you will see actually a lot of this going on throughout my activities. I know that a lot of people tend to do multiple things and they just get to add 300 different things listed on their activities or on their resume. I by and large try to work with things that I actually cared about. So you see a lot of you started freshman year, started sophomore year, and remained involved in that until my senior year. Personally, I think that's a better approach. One, because it makes it easier to prove your personal statement, because at least in my case, my personal statement was about things that I'm interested in, well, it wasn't about that, but it mentions that because it's an important thing. So it was important to show that, I was doing things that related to what I'm talking about. And second, because it also shows commitment. I feel as though, and I could be wrong, but personally, if I see something that has, you're 4 months in this, you're 4 months in that, you're 2 months in this, and you're 2 months in that, uh, it kind of just gives me the impression that you're doing it just to do it, or you're doing it just, as a resume buffer. And I didn't want to give out this impression. So, I did things that I knew I would stick to, and I stuck to things that I've done. But yeah, having that said, I can move on to the fourth thing that I mentioned. And it's very ironic because this one is a very short-lived one. But it was because the program was very, short-lived. But I was a student participant in a program called Power of Dialogue, which was a collaboration between my undergrad and different undergrads. where students were engaged in discussions about the difference between, rural life and urban life, and trying to really build a bridge between rural and urban students. uh, I was in a very interesting position because I go to school in a rural campus and I lived a few years of my life like very close to farms. But I'm technically an urban student because I'm from the city and I go to college in the country. So I was in a very interesting position during that because I was there as a rural student. And I definitely see why I'm, classified as such. I go to school in the country and I lived a few years in the country. But at the same time, I also had a lot of, knowledge about city life because as of right now, my real like house outside of campus is in the city. But it was a very interesting program, and it was just discussion. It was very intellectually based, and that lasted for just the spring semester of my freshman year. It was unpaid, so I made sure to point that out, and that was my fourth activity. My fifth activity was also very short-lived, so I feel like I chose the worst time ever to say, oh, I chose things that I knew I would commit to, but I actually had a reason. I didn't put out the reason as to why I didn't last that long, but I was a Crimson guide. I was a tour guide in the office of, admissions here, and it's pretty much just being a tour guide. And the reason why it was short-lived for me is that that's actually a job, and I wasn't doing it as a job. I did it as a volunteer because I needed to complete service hours, and it was the freshman year, so it was the year of COVID, and I just thought it would be a better way to do it because it's very hard to do service hours when you're also supposed to be quarantining. So I did it unpaid as opposed to having it as a job. But for that reason, it also only lasted a semester. Now back to being on track. My sixth activity that I have listed was being a conversational partner, which is a program that they have on my undergrad, where a domestic student, so a student like me and you, if if you're from the U.S. or you were not necessarily born in the U.S. but you're not an international student, like it was my case. I moved here when I was a kid. I graduated high school here, or actually even middle school. But anyways, you got the point. If you're considered a domestic student, you get partnered with a international student, and you basically become a liaison for them. Like you help them adjust a little bit to life in the US. You help them practice English, have conversations with them. You become a friend. You it's usually just actually being friends with someone, but it's a really rewarding experience because I've got to meet people like from all over the world. My first year, I was paired with a girl from Japan. I was after like paired with a guy from Pakistan, from Korea. So those things are just very interesting, at least for me. And as someone who has dealt with the immigrant experience, which is a little bit different than the international student experience, but I also knew certain feelings were in common, like, the culture shock and all of that. So it was very interesting to be a part of it, and I stuck with it for a long time. I started out in the fall of my sophomore year, and I still am well, technically not the semester anymore because uh, the program is over for the semester, but I was by the time I applied, I was still a conversation partner. And the only reason why I'm not is because it's done for the semester. It's finals week. So, yeah. The seventh activity I have listed was being an ambassador for the university. Now, this was one that I was very happy with getting the activity supplement because it is on my resume, but the resume doesn't really give you room to explain the difference between being an ambassador and a campus guide because a lot of people think, oh yeah, so you're a tour guide. And I was like, well, yeah, for a semester, but that's not what ambassadors are. Mm. It is an organization here on campus. It is very selective. We're capped at a certain number of students, and I never remember what the cap is. But it's a very selective organization on campus in which the students who are a part of act as a bridge connecting alumni and current students. So it is our responsibility to put out events that welcome alumni. We work on homecoming. We work on events like the Distinguished Alumni Awards, We create alumni series where, we have students from certain majors come and talk to specific people who are like working in that field. So those are the things, the works that we do as IP ambassadors. And because we are like the first face that returning, well, not returning students, alumni see when they come to campus, it is a very prestigious kind of thing, very also demanding, but very rewarding. So that was one that I'm generally very proud of being a part of. Next up, my eighth activity, and that I also started in the fall of my sophomore year. My eighth activity was being a student representative in the admissions committee for my honors college. So at the school that I currently attend, my undergrad, the honors college is a little bit different than honors in other schools in the sense that it is not a program, it is a separate college. So if you're a part of the honors college, you actually have a different curriculum than if you attend, the regular university. As so, it is a separate college. You live in a different place, you take different classes, you have a whole different curriculum. Like your liberal arts requirements are different, so your electives and are also different and all of that. So because of that, there is actually a separate application for the honors college with reviews and essays and all of that. And the admissions committee always has student representatives on it because they like to have the voice of students who are currently a part of it. So I've been a part of the admissions board since the fall of my sophomore year up until this semester. Again, I'm not doing that at this right second because applications are not open anymore. But yeah, that was my eighth activity. And also unpaid. Almost everything here is unpaid except for my campus job. And my ninth activity that's listed on my during undergrad classes is my position in the Student Cooperative Board of Directors. So the co-op association here has a board of directors like many other companies do, and they always require like student representatives. You know, it's a body of the student. It's a student like elected from the student body. There's a whole election. The term's like 2 years, and it was really another really good experience. And I definitely point that out as a very important one, at least in my case, because it was a way for me to get professional experience without actually graduating. Because I mean, most of this I know is very like there's a lot of speculation. But if you look at the numbers and the data, it kind of points out to that way. Students who are KJD generally are uh, what can I say? I forgot the word for that. I'm sorry. You know, lagging behind for the lack of a better word because I don't remember what the word I'm thinking of is. But there's there we are competing with students who have a bunch of work experience who can say a lot of things that I did this, I did that, I was working for this company. So being a member of the board of directors for a multi-million company was definitely something that I would know put a little bit of sorry, I gotta edit this part out, I guess. Or maybe I should leave it on because then you can see how awkward I am. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is this is definitely an activity that I feel like gave me a lot of points, quote, for the lack of a better term, because it was a way for me to get work experience and relevant work experience while still in college. So I was a member of the board of directors. I took votes. I attended the meetings, voted on plans regarding student life, and the most important part is definitely voting on the budget and voting on how the student activities fee was managed. So to be a part of, the board of directors was a very rewarding experience. It was very great, and it wasn't really that much time commitment. It was like a 1 hour a week, but I do think like if you were to ask me what is one of the activities that you think may have put you ahead, I definitely think that is one of them. Because even people who have relevant work experience may not be able to say, "Oh yeah, I was in the board of directors for a multi-million company," and I get to say that. So Damn, I sound kind of cocky right now. Sorry. But those were the activities that I've done while still in school, in the sense that they were done during my fall and spring. The second section of my application of my activities supplement were things that I've done during my summer. And I try to make sure that I had busy summers, this past few years, because I knew that I wanted to go to school right after college. I had a very good sense that I wanted to go to law school after college. I was still considering maybe grad school, but not law. But I was 89.99999% sure that I wanted to go to law school. And because of that, I knew that I would be competing with people with work experience. That's what I just said earlier on. And I knew that I needed to show that I was doing things, over the summer to, be competitive. So on my first summer, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I I was a student mentor for the program here at my undergrad called the Crimson Scholar Circle. So basically, I was part of this college immersive program where I helped first generation students get accustomed to attending college. I assisted in workshops aimed at improving first generation students' life skills like managing time and studying effectively. And at the end of the program, I was also matched to five incoming students to which I peer mentored them and I helped them navigate through the first semester of college. So it technically started out in the summer, but it led through the fall. I still put that on the during undergrad summer because it was a lot of my commitment for the summer. I'm talking about like full time, and it wasn't that much of a commitment during the fall because I was just meeting with them once a week. That was part of, the program was that like, but I feel like on the great scheme of things, it might have not been the most important thing ever, but I do think it was an important player. A, because it showed that I wasn't, doing nothing on my first summer, but two, because it shows that even from, an early age, not early age, but you know what I mean, like even as, a lower underclassman, I still shown enough maturity and leadership to be selected to a position in which I will mentor incoming freshmen. Because I had people in my cohort who were older than me. Because, like I said, this was in the summer between my first and my second year. So a lot of freshmen who took like gap years, and there were a lot of them because I was a freshman in 2020, so COVID. Some of them were older than me. So I do feel like, in hindsight, when I look at that part, it does say good things about me because it shows that I was mature enough, that I was in a more respected position regardless of age. But that's what I did in my first summer. For my second summer, I decided to go a more academic route. The honors college here has a very amazing thing called the Achievement Fund, in which if you want to do something over the summer that you think will broaden your academic horizons or will be important for you in a professional setting somehow, you can apply for the fund and you may get, the activity covered in full or in part. I was very lucky I got mine covered in full. So I spent the summer between my second and my third year in Los Angeles. I was taking a research course at UCLA, uh, where you learn how to do research, but also while doing your own. So I wrote my paper. It was called There's No Place Like Home, and it was analyzing different ways in which different generations have a different concept of home. And generation here was used in the sense of immigrant generation. So I'm not talking about millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, though I did make a point about that in my paper as well. But the overall point is actually about one generation one, which is like the adults who moved into the US, generation 1.5, which is you're born outside of the US, but you moved as a child or as a teenager, and generation 2, which is your first of the family to be born in the US. So I was comparing those generations and how their definition of home may vary. And it was very interesting. I got an A on the paper, and I liked what I did. And I put that there because it is what I did over the summer. I was there from early June to late July. So it may feel like it wasn't that long of a time, it feels like just a month, but technically it was 2 months, and it was great. And I definitely think this is strengthening my application as well, because at least from what I've seen and from what I've heard, schools like students who've done research, and considering how YLS is definitely focused a lot on academia, I'm sure that they didn't frown upon me doing research over the summer. And lastly but not least, over the summer between my junior year and this year, so last summer, I was a part of the trials program. And like I said before, if you want me to, I can do a video just about programs like trials. And obviously, I'll talk about trials in that video as well. But long story short, trials is a program done as a partnership between the Advantage Testing Foundation, Harvard Law School, and the New York University School of Law, so NYU Law. And it's a very rigorous pre-law preparation program that takes place over the summer. It takes place either at HLS or at NYU. So over my summer, it took place in NYU. So I was in New York over the summer. I was one of 20 from more than 1,500 applicants, so it is a very competitive program. And if I had to choose out of the 3 summers, which one the biggest step to get me there, I would definitely say it was last summer, the one that I was part of trials, because it addresses one of the most important parts of your application, which is the LSAT. So yeah, I feel like it was very confusing what I just said. I'm so sorry. But that was, the section about what I did over the undergraduate summer. And yeah, it wasn't that long because I'm a senior, so I only had 3 summers. And I wasn't splitting my summers. All of the things that I've done were very long term, from June to, the early June to late July, early June to end of fall, or with trials from June to August. So, I was just doing one big thing that was demanding. But yeah, and the last part, I actually have only one thing listed under this, is the other activities during undergraduate education. And I only reserved that spot to talk about my capstone project for my honors college. So, throughout my time in the honors college, we are expected to write 8 short research papers. And short, I mean like 10 or 15 pages, so a lot shorter than like a lot of thesis papers are. But there are also 8 of them, so that kind of makes up for the size. And I was answering questions like, must the need for social order conflict with the need for individual liberty? What does it mean to be human? And other questions like that through the scopes of like multiple academic subjects. So I wrote one for bio, for history, literature, anthropology, music, philosophy, etc. And because this was done throughout my undergraduate time, I actually got it done on the fall of my junior year. But I have it listed from, I started out this project on my first semester, and then I was writing across the semesters evenly and finished on the fall of my junior year. This one, as when it comes to like impact on my activities list, uh, it's kind of interesting because I feel like it goes hand in hand with the research part. I think that for some schools, it definitely was positive to see because they were like, okay, so this kid writes, this kid is, interested in research, this kid can, has what it takes. So I feel like for schools like YLS, for example, it was a definitely big pro. For other schools, I don't think it was a con, but I don't think they were like, okay, woo, great thing, this is definitely what's going to let him in. But yeah, that was the gist of it. Those were, the my activity supplement. And the one thing that I would like to say, my general strategy, which is actually kind of like something that I already said earlier in the video, is that if you go back, you realize that I didn't list that many things. I listed 9 activities during, fall and spring. I listed one during multiple things, and 3 during summers for one per summer. So, that's not like an endless list of like I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that. And that was very intentional because I wanted to show that I know what I'm doing with my life pretty much in a way. But I wanted to show that I'm genuine. I know that a lot of people, will join clubs and they'll be part of the club for like 4 weeks, or they'll join clubs that they don't do anything. Like you go to a meeting like once in a blue moon, and that adds up to your resume. So like you end up having like an activity supplement where you have like 60 different activities listed. But I didn't want that to be my case. I didn't want that to be my story. I wanted my story, I wanted my application to look like the kind of person that I am in, real life. I am the kind of person who is very committed to things. So I naturally just committed to things that, were what I was interested in. And a lot of them tie with what I wrote about in my personal statement. And I'll go more about that on my video about my personal statement. But I talked about wanting to work with the immigrant community because that's part of my backstory. And you can definitely see that like reflected in my application from activities like being part of the conversational partners, where I was a liaison between an international student and America, or in my research in which I basically just spent my whole summer studying immigrants and immigrant patterns. So I chose to let my activities illustrate my essay, and I chose to do things that I knew were representative of me, as opposed to doing activities that are, I thought would look good. I mean, you will notoriously see that, and I was part of it for a while, and it is on my resume, but it's not here. But you'll notoriously see that, I didn't have being part of the pre-law society here on campus because I didn't do much as part of pre-law society. It's on my resume, but it's not really on like you on my what did I do supplement, because I would be lying if I said I did a lot. And long story short, my big advice is that personally, if I were you, I would ignore everything that I listed that I've done. I would basically pretend that I never seen this video until this point, and I would instead find things that are representative of yourself. I would find things that you actually like, you actually care about, and you can actually dedicate some time to do. Because I realized that I stopped mentioning that throughout the video, but a lot of my things were, dedication time was 2 to 5 hours a week, 3 to 5 hours a week sometimes. So, they seem that I've put in the time of my week to work on those things, which is why I have less things than a lot of people, but I have more dedicated time. And I also have like growth, because for a lot of those, I've been like, from the position of just being a member to being the leader. Like I was the president of the Latino Student Organization. I was in the executive board for ambassadors, things of the sort. So that would be my great piece of advice. It would be to actually do things that are representative of yourself and that you can dedicate your time to, and then potentially can grow in position, as opposed to finding 300 different things that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put that on my resume, and then you're on the interview and they're like, oh, so why were you a part of the blah 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 society, and you're like, well, I don't know, it was just something I thought would look good on the resume. So that is it. That is my video. I ended up not being that helpful, I think, but either way, I hope I was, and I hope that I'm wrong. And yeah, feel free to, comment any questions that you have. And I'm sorry that I sound like I'm getting strangled. I am, with the flu. I don't know why I said it like that. But yeah, I'm recovering from the flu. So that's why I sound a little stuffy. And that's it. Thank you. I hope you see you next time.